friends, welcome to Changing Tracks. We have Hannah with us. Hannah, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you're from, how old you are?
Yes. So my name's Hannah. I'm 25 years old. I'm from Florida in the US. I'm actually from a town called St. Augustine, but I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, which is like 45 minutes north of there.
Could you tell us a little bit about your family and what your faith life was like?
So I grew up into a Catholic family, but we didn't really practice much. I remember once asking my parents if I was Christian or Catholic, and they were like, both, you're a Catholic. And so I grew up kind of just, we went to Mass like maybe like 4 times a year. Like we went during Christmas and Easter, and then kind of whenever else my parents felt like it. So I didn't really know anything about my faith in that regard growing up. But I thankfully got the blessing of going to this Christian camp in North Carolina. So for the summer, for 2 weeks, I got to like travel and go to this Christian camp. There was like a sleepaway camp, and it was Baptist. So they basically taught me how to have a relationship with Jesus and like who Jesus is. And they just made it all like so much fun. Like we just like played all these games, like messy games, and sang all these cool songs. And I was like so on fire for Jesus when I was there. But then when I would come back home, it would like just kind of dwindle and die. And I wasn't able to like, fill myself back up when I was a kid. But I did have like a really good friend. And I met her that first summer I was there. So ever since I was 8 years old, I had this really good friend who at the time, it was like before cell phones and stuff. We were pen pals. So she would like write me a letter and be like, hey, how's your faith life going? And me as like an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old was like, not great. How's yours going? And we just like write letters back and forth. But then when we finally got like cell phones and stuff, we used to call each other. And then eventually like when texting became a thing, like we used to text each other all the time. Like, hey, did you pray today? Like, how are you doing? So she was actually how I like first started to kind of get a taste for the faith and just like learn that it's not something that I can do once a year, but that I can do every single day and like truly live out. So like the only ways that I knew how to like live that out, because I didn't really go to church, was through the Christian radio station. Like I used to listen to Christian music all the time, or just I had like little devotional Bibles that would tell me what to read each day, and I would read some of those. But again, not having like a community, like it was very hard for me to like keep up my faith myself.
When you were a child, what was your idea of God? How did you see him?
I don't know if I had like one specific image of him, but it was just kind of like more of like a friend. I never really thought of God as like a father figure. I guess mainly just because my parents weren't very like into their faith. So I think associating like God with a father wasn't really a thing for me. But the camp I grew up going to, they really encourage you to know that Jesus is like your friend and he's always with you. So I guess just this like image of like, I guess Jesus smiling at me and just being really friendly towards me was my image of him. But I remember like later in life, there's like actually a specific image that when people say like sum up your relationship with Jesus, like now, I don't know if back then it would have been, but like now it's this picture, you can like Google it. It's like Jesus and it's a cartoon. It's Jesus with a little girl, and the little girl has this like tattered up teddy bear and she's like squeezing it like, God, no, I love this. And Jesus is just like, trust me, like give me the teddy bear. And what she doesn't know is like behind his back is this like even bigger and more beautiful teddy bear. And so God is just asking the little girl to trust him. And then when she does, then he'll give her something even bigger and better. So that's like kind of the main image I have of Jesus, at least now. But it's a little different than back then.
You went to those camps and had a friend that helped you in the faith. But was there any moment when you kind of lost the faith? What happened?
Yeah, I think because of like the world nowadays, it's just like the media and just the TV and all this, it's very easy to just kind of, for it to get snuffed out, for it to just be like, oh, you're imagining things, or oh, that's not real, or that's not important. So I would say like I always considered it, like I grew up going to that camp every year. I was very, very fortunate to be able to go every year. I went all the way through to the end of high school, and then I was a camp counselor, so like I went every year. But it was like I had this like tank, right? And every year I'd go to the camp and it'd get all filled up, and then throughout the year it would just kind of dwindle and then diminish. And I remember one year it was like February, and I was like, oh my gosh, camp isn't until June, but I made it all the way to February this year before I'm just like, no, I don't want to pray anymore. Like I don't know what to do anymore. Like I'm kind of out of material. I don't know what to read in the Bible. But every year I would like get filled back up, and I just knew like to look forward to the camp. So it kind of became this like, I guess almost like an excuse of like, I don't have to do all this stuff because I know I'm going to go to that camp and I will be filled back up. So I never learned how to like refill it on like in like my daily life or like my home life, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you didn't quite grasp the faith in your teen years. When you finished high school, what did you do?
So I went to university. In my university, I was very fortunate. They had a program called Focus, which is the Fellowship of Catholic University Students. So basically it's like they have missionaries that come to college campuses, and then those missionaries kind of go on campus and say like, hey, I'm leading a Bible study. Would you like to come? And then when people start coming to their Bible studies, then they ask people like, hey, you seem really into this. Would you like to enter into discipleship? And then they teach you how to lead Bible studies and how to kind of like spread the faith. And then you go and you lead Bible studies. And so it's like one of those like, I only focus on 2 people, and then they only focus on like 2 people. And before you know it, you got like the whole campus. So when I was a freshman, or my first year of university, I joined one of those Bible studies, and I met a really good friend that way. And I just remember, like, I went to Bible study, and she just was like, wow, like, you seem really into this. And she asked me into discipleship, which meant that I would meet with her every week, and she would kind of pour herself into me and just check in on me. How's your personal prayer going? How's Mass? Like, how's your life going? And just, like, really, like, checking in on me as a person and not just me as, like, a statistic. And I just remember this one day, she took me, and she was like, hey, I know it's late, we just finished Bible study, but would you like to go to adoration? And like, not coming from a very, very Catholic family, I was like, what's adoration? And she was like, oh, we're gonna go to this room, and there's gonna be, like the Eucharist in this golden stand called a monstrance, and we're gonna be sitting in front of it for an hour. And I was like, a whole hour? What do you do for an hour? And so I was like, I brought like a journal, and then like the Bible, and then like 3 or 4 spiritual books. And I just remember being like all prepared to like be bored. And I remember getting in there and I wrote, and then all of a sudden it was over. And I just like wrote wasn't even a lot. I just wrote 1 page, and I was like, that was it. I loved that. That was so much fun. And so like she just kept introducing me to things of like in the Catholic faith like that. And I just remember being like I would go to daily Mass. Like I didn't know that was a thing. So I went to daily Mass. I started leading my own Bible study. Like I started doing all these like Catholic things, and I was like, man, I'm such a good Catholic. Like it can't get better than me, right? No. So a big part of my life was my grades. I actually went to school for engineering, and I like got it. Like I'm past school now, so like I'm actually an engineer. And my second year of university was kind of when like my faith life kind of started to decline, because I just really got sucked into my grades. I just really believed like it didn't matter what I had to do, but I had to get my grades. Like I had to get my A's or my straight A's, because that's like what I had had most of my life. And I entered into this semester, and it was like all of my classes were what's called weed out classes. And those are classes that are difficult on purpose so that you drop out. Like they just make everything really, really difficult. So the only way I could like keep my head above water was I would get up every day at like 5:30 in the morning, and I would go to my job. I had like a part-time job, and I would do that before school, and I would go to school. Then I'd have like a break, and I'd study, and then I'd go to school again, and then I'd study some more, and then it'd like be time for bed. Like I didn't have time for my friends that semester. So then after like a month or so, like I had my first round of tests, and I was like, okay, like I got this. So I went through and I did all my tests, and I got them all back within like the same 2 days. And I got, so I went from being like straight A's to getting a C, I think 2 Ds and an F. And like to me that was crushing because it wasn't like I was slacking and I was just like, oh, I don't really care. But like I like put everything on the side and decided to focus on this, and I wasn't doing well. And so like it like crushed me. So I like went back to my dorm room and I like closed the door and I just kind of let myself cry it out because that's okay. And my friends, thankfully, who like I had made through the Bible studies and stuff, they came in and were like, hey, like something's wrong with Hannah. Let's go check on her. And they're like, hey, like there's daily mass tonight. Would you like to come? Like you probably, I don't think you've been in a while, but like you should come with us. And so I was like, okay, I'll go. And so I went to mass and I like got there late for some reason. So I was like sitting in the very, very back. And I just remember like thinking that whole time, I was like, Jesus, I think I just need you. I think what's lacking in my life, like I think I really just need more of you. And so I go up to the priest and I like hold my hands out for communion, and he places 5 in my hand, which is not normal at all. And so I like look up at the priest to make sure it's not a mistake, and he was like, go for it. I was like, okay. So I like ate it. I ate 5 times the normal amount. And I just remember it like feeling like a meal had like settled into my stomach. Like I could feel Jesus in my stomach. And I like went and sat back down in the pew, and it clicked. I was like, I had prayed for more of Jesus, and he like very literally answered my prayer. And I just felt so comforted, and like, I don't know, like I felt like his daughter in that moment, because I had like put him on the sidelines. But as soon as I had called out to him and asked him to be there for me, like he had just comforted me. He didn't say like, oh no, you put me on the sidelines, I'm gonna put you on the sidelines. Instead he said, no, like you really need me right now. And you need to know that like your identity should be in me and not in your grades. So like from then on, like I'm not gonna say everything was rainbows and sunshine, like it wasn't. It's every day is like a choice. But like from then on, it wasn't like my grades didn't matter anymore. They were just more like, it wasn't my identity. So if I tried my hardest and I failed, which I did often throughout university, it no longer like gave me that same crushing feeling, because I was like, it doesn't matter if I tried my hardest and I failed, like I am still a child of God, and like that's where my identity is. And that was like a real turning point as far as like my mindset goes, because I think in my head it had always been like schoolwork and then God. But it like the flipping of that was just like really beautiful.
How would you say that you lived the faith from that moment until you finished college? How did your faith change?
Christina, that's a good question. So I think it was more of like just the things I would say yes to. So like for instance, my last semester, or my last summer before I was going to graduate. So I had like my summer and then one more year of university and then like graduation. I remember having like this argument with my family, and they're like, you should go do an internship. You should do all this stuff. And I had already had an internship, and I was like, no, like I think I'm good. I think I'm okay to like spend this summer doing something else. So there's this camp, I think it's in Colorado, like in the Rocky Mountains in the US. And it's basically like an outdoors summer camp for like, I think high school age kids. And they just basically are like, it's a Catholic camp. It's named after JP2, so Camp Watiwa. And they basically like have mass every day, and they do all these like fun outdoorsy activities. And yeah, so I was just applying to become a counselor for that. And I remember like just arguing with my parents, and they're like, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't do this. You should do this internship. And I was like, no, like, I'm going to apply to do this. Like, I think I should spend this last summer for God. And I remember like in my head, like, I was like, this is what I want to do. I have to do this thing. And then like, and I felt called to do it. So it was just that like, I guess hearing God's voice, like through times of like adoration or through prayer, and just trying to answer them instead of like saying, no, that's too difficult. I'll just do what everybody else is telling me to do. And I remember like I applied in like January or something, and the time came and where like everything else, like all the other doors in my life were like being closed. Like that internship door, oh, the deadline passed, or that other internship, that deadline passed, or applying for summer classes, that deadline passed. And I still didn't know if I even got Camp Watiwa. And it wasn't until like mid-April, I think. Like this was supposed to start at the beginning of May. So like, it's like, or end of May. So like mid-April was when I finally heard back that I didn't get it. And I was like, God, like, what are you doing? Like I just sincerely believed that you called me to apply to this. So I was like, you brought me here. I have no plans. You want me to do something. And so I think just being open to that and not like saying like being mad at God, but just saying, God, you brought me here. Like Padre Pio says, like pray, hope, and don't worry. That was like my slogan that year. But like a few weeks later, this program that Focus runs opened up in Colorado, and it was like Focus Summer Projects. And it was all about like you go there and you work at the local, like in the local town, and then you get discipled, and then you also learn how to lead Bible studies there. And that like as soon as it opened up, like I applied and I like immediately got it, and like within a month, like I was there. And it was one of the best summers I've had like ever in my life. And I've met some really close friends that way. Like one girl I met there, I was in her wedding last year. And so I just like had like all these beautiful friendships and beautiful things come out of just trusting God. And so I think like what I've really learned through my relationship with God is not to take it at face value, but to just trust, because his plan is always better than what I can imagine.
Having grown up in a Catholic family that didn't practice, then having a big encounter with the Lord and wanting to live your faith, did you start doing something to learn about the truth of the Catholic faith?
Yes and no. So there, I actually did get help from my parents. So, like, I went to this one high school, and then like, I had to transfer high schools just because of I think like the recession hit, so we had to like transfer high schools for money reasons. So I went to Bishop Kenny, and that's like where I first kind of started getting like hearing about being Catholic. But it was kind of like considered uncool to be Catholic there. Like that was like what the crowds, the, peer pressure and all that. But we learned by me going there that all my classmates were confirmed and I wasn't, because my family was like, oh, we have forgotten about confirmation. And so my parents were like, do you want to be confirmed? And I was like, oh, what do I have to do? And like go to class every single Sunday. And I was like, sure, let's do that. So I did do RCIA, and I actually like got confirmed that way. But it was just like, I don't know, because it was like, it felt like it was just me, and there weren't many other kids in it. It was like mainly adults. So it was like all these adults and then me, like I think I was like 15. I wasn't like as open to like learning about it then. And I think I just saw it as more boring stuff. But that was definitely like a gateway into like becoming more Catholic, of like, okay, these are my roots. This is what I know. I do believe in this faith. And then when I finally got to university, it's like when I started being able to explore it with like an actual community. If that makes sense.
And what inspired you to do something like NET?
That's a good question, Christina. So I graduated college with my engineering degree, and I went off and did engineering for 2 years. So I'm 2 years out of university. And it's hard being out in the real world, especially like as like a single Catholic person. So it's like the world is very much like, I don't know, just puts all these pressures on you. And yeah, but I was like trying to find myself like in the church. And I was like, okay, what communities can I belong to here? And my church had all these like married couple things, or they had like youth groups like for 18 and younger, but they like kind of missed my specific target audience. And so I like tried to lead Bible studies and stuff there, and I started one up, but I just like, after like a year or so, like I just felt so detached from it. And I just like, again, like kind of did that thing that I did with like the Camp Watiwa, where I just was like, okay, God, like, where do you want me? Like, I feel like you're calling me somewhere. And I just remember within like 2 weeks, so I'm like, okay, God, like, where do you want me? I'm open, like, hit me with it. Like, I'm here. And within 2 weeks, I had 4 different people, like different areas of my life who do not know each other, all come up to me and talk to me about Ireland, from anywhere from like 5 minutes to 2 hours. And I was like after the third one, I was like, God, if it's really you, I want another person to come up to me and talk to me about Ireland, because I was having doubts. It just seemed so random. And so, a fourth person came up to me, and I think that one was the longest, where they had just come back from a trip from Ireland and were like gushing to me all about it. And so I was like, okay, Ireland. What about Ireland? So I went to Google, as you do, and I Googled Ireland missions, and then I looked up, and all I could find was like week-long things. And then I was like, okay, maybe he wants me to work there. I was like, I'm an engineer, engineering jobs in Ireland. And like nothing seemed right. And so I was like, okay, God, like my ears are open. Just like talk to me whenever you feel like it. Like I'm here. And then I I belonged to Blessed Is She. I found that community. So just like a community of women that we would meet like every other week or so and like just kind of talk about the Bible. And one girl I met there was like, hey, Hannah, like you would probably really like this podcast called Among the Lilies, which is Cameron Frad leads it. And so I was like, okay. And she had like 50 podcasts or something. So I was just like scrolled through and I picked one and I started listening to it. And it was all about how like kind of like her like story, like her origin story. And it was about how she did Net Canada. And I was like, what is this net thing? And so I was like, God, like, I don't know what this is, but if there's an Ireland one, like, I feel you're calling me to do that. And so I went and sure enough, there was. And I got the form and I like filled it out. It took me like months to fill it out because I was just like, what am I even doing? I don't even know. But it was just like God gave me this tunnel vision, which was just, it was so needed. He was just like, just this one step at a time. That's all I need you to do. So I like got recommendations from people and I filled out my form and I submitted it. And then like it was time for my interview and all this. And like the day after my interview, they were like, you got it. Do you want to come? And I was like, no. I said no. I was like, no, I do not. That's really scary because I would have to quit my job. I'd have to like sell a lot of my stuff. I'd have to tell everybody I know. I'd have to, I don't know, just get rid of my apartment that I had. Like I'd have to basically like blow up my life to go do this. And so they called me back and were just like, hey, we just want to talk to you about this. And like that conversation ended up with me in tears, crying to somebody I didn't even know on the phone and just like being really vulnerable with them and just telling them about all my fears and worries and stuff. But it was like God like decided, okay, in this moment, I'm going to take off your blinders. You're going to see the whole picture and you're going to either say yes or no to this whole picture. And then I eventually said yes. I was like, okay, if this, and this, like we just like cleared the air. And I was like, okay, I'm going to say yes. And so I did.
Friends, we have to say yes. Say yes to the Lord and to His plans, even though sometimes we might not like the idea and that the vocation that we're called to, whatever it be, makes us leave things behind and go to Ireland, like what Hannah did. There is no doubt that the reward is much better than you can imagine. Thanks for being with us. Thank you.
Ánimo. Gracias por estar hoy aquí con nosotros. Gracias.